Test.
We're Hasani and Danielle Pettiford, and we're a real couple with real problems who almost called it quits.
I was very frustrated. I became very disconnected, very jaded and cold.
We have 4 children, going on 20 years of marriage, and we practice what we preach.
Our mission, to change the way couples relate to one another and teach them the skills needed to improve the quality of their relationships. This is the Couples Academy Show.
Well, good morning, everyone. My name is Hasani.
And I'm Lakeesha Hines.
And we're here this morning to talk to you, to engage in the conversation as we do every single morning. If you're not familiar with who we are practitioners for Couples Academy. And this is the place where people hang out all around the world to talk about love, life, and relationships. And today we're going to get into a conversation that I think is important because so many people have considered divorce, but before they do that, they want to, separate. A lot of people come to us already in a separated state, and they're trying to figure out, well, how do we turn this thing around? How do we get back in alignment? And so that's what we're going to talk about today. How to reconcile after separation. This is really a relational status that many, many people find themselves in. So whether you are in the same home, separated, in-house separation, I'm on the top floor, you're on the bottom floor, where you're on the couch, I'm in the bedroom, or whether we're in 2 different geographical locations under different households, how do we reconcile in the midst of that? That's what we're talking about today. But listen, guys, as you know, a lot coming up in September. We've been talking about September 9th through the 11th. It is the Unearthed Women's Retreat. Lakeesha will be front and center, keynoting, giving them powerful information that's transformational. I'm sure you're excited about that.
Listen, I can barely contain myself. I'm so excited.
But also the week thereafter, as you know, we have the Last Chance Weekend. It's a powerful experience that we encourage many, many couples to come out to. So check out this. If you've never heard about the Last Chance Weekend, if you're just tuning in for the first time, if you tune in every single day and you're sick and tired of hearing us talk about it, well, guess what? Stay sick and tired, because we ain't going to stop talking about the Last Chance Weekend, because we know what it can do for your marriage. So take a look at this. We'll be right back and jump into this conversation. That's right, guys. That's the Last Chance Weekend. That's what we definitely look forward to. We live for it because we know the impact and power that it has on your relationship. So if you're considering that, people are signing up. We don't want you to miss out on that opportunity, because listen, we're actually winding down. We're about to go into the 4th quarter of the year. And don't you want to go into your new year whole, complete, renewed, restored, in a much better place? Well, if so, definitely reach out to us and let's talk about that. Many people, interestingly, come to the Last Chance Weekend in the very state of what we're talking about today, separated. Matter of fact, there have been couples who've been separated anywhere from 6 months to 5 years, and yet they're able to find reconciliation. So the question is, how do we go from being in a separated state to reconciling and being back in the house today. So let's walk through some of these steps. Number one, I think the most important thing that we need to realize is that communication will make or break your relationship. We know this. We talk about this all the time. It's in one of the top 5 struggles that most people have. And so what happens is when you're separated and no longer in the same space, you may not see each other as much. You may not talk as much, though you still do talk from time to time, maybe about the kids, maybe about finances, maybe about whatever. But it requires that you get back into the rhythm and the flow of communicating, but not just talking about surface peripheral things like, hey, how about those Knicks? Or, hey, what's going on in world politics today? That's nice, right? To be able to talk through things because it means like you're in a civil space, you can still engage in conversation. But we're talking about the importance of having deeper conversations where you begin to go into the deeper levels of intimacy, where you begin to share your feelings, right?
Mhm.
Sharing your feelings, not just your negative feelings, what's hurting you, what's making you feel full of pain, and what's
Mhm.
creating depression, anger, and anxiety, but also talking about the things that you are hopeful of, those things that you truly desire, those things that you wish that you could have again and share with your spouse if the circumstances were right. I think a lot of times we have no problem expressing hard emotions, but the soft emotions, which require vulnerability, we hesitate because we fear being hurt again. But it is not until you get in a place of being able to articulate how you feel that conversations can begin to happen in a way that draws you closer to reconciliation.
Agreed.
All right, well, let's keep going.
Yeah, so one of the things that I think about with my husband and I is that he is a comedian. Like, people, if you don't know him, like, you would never guess that he's a comedian, but he really, really is. And so one of the things that attracted me to him was his ability to make me laugh. And so one of the things that will lend a couple to realize that, you know what, we might be able to work this thing out is if we're able to still think about good times, share jokes, be able to still laugh, and there's still humor in the relationship. So
Mm.
this is a really, really good sign that you guys will be able to reconcile if you're still able to make each other laugh and you're still able to have that humor and bring the comedy into the relationship.
Very true. Because I think what happens is so many people focus on what's wrong, what's not
Yes.
working, how things bad have gotten. And if that's all you're marinating in all day long, that wouldn't motivate anybody to want to reconcile. Like, who wants to sign up for more of that? But when you begin to reflect on how it was in the beginning, you know, in the midst of all the craziness, there are those moments of joy and bliss and peace and tranquility and fun and connecting, and really bringing your mind into the thought of that can help you to say, you know what, maybe we can try this thing all over again. So I think that's a great point. Another point.
When people stop having fun, that's one of the reasons how they end up separated a lot of times anyway, is because they stop enjoying each other and they stop having fun. So being able to shift back to that, to find that again, can inspire them and encourage them and keep them wanting to fight for the relationship.
I agree 100%. Now, rekindling the fun, but also here's another important point. Like, we've talked about this, the importance of forgiveness. Now, I
Yeah.
want to unpack what this should look like if you're reconciling, moving from a separation to being in the home together. Nobody wants to sign up for more of the same.
Yeah.
Nobody wants to go back into a relationship with someone who hasn't owned their stuff, who hasn't genuinely and authentically accepted responsibility for their contribution to where the relationship is. And so it requires forgiveness, but forgiveness with accountability. For
Hmm.
me to just forgive you and there's no change, there's no new behavior or new patterns established in you as an individual and in the relationship, it's just like, well, what are we reconciling for? Right?
Right.
Do we just want to punish ourselves again? I think you have to have conversations where you both reveal what you're taking responsibility for and how you've contributed to the demise of the relationship and how you plan on turning things around. So owning it, asking forgiveness, receiving forgiveness, extending forgiveness is a major piece to this process.
And true forgiveness, authentic, real, genuine forgiveness, asking the question, why am I forgiving? Because sometimes, we forgive for the wrong reasons. We forgive because we're trying to make the relationship work for the sake of the children. And that's not enough. That's good. That's a starting point. But that cannot be the end all be all with why you decide that you're going to forgive. You forgive because it's the right thing to do. You forgive because it's what God called us to do. You forgive because you want to be free and you want to have peace, right? And you don't want to be carrying around that burden of not forgiving that person. And more importantly, not forgiving yourself.
Exactly.
All right. So you ready for the next one? I'm excited about this one because this one is about our individual selves, right? We are so busy, focused a lot of times on what the other person is doing, especially if there's infidelity, right? So the betrayed often is pointing the finger at the betrayer and constantly saying, well, you broke us, you did this, it's your fault why we're here. And a lot of that is true, but at the same time, there are two people in a relationship. So that means that both parties have equal equity in the relationship, equal responsibility in the relationship. And so we have to look at our individual selves and what contributions or lack thereof we've made in a relationship. So it's important that if you are separated, right, that
Mhm.
you take that time to focus on you and healing whatever is broken inside of you. Get into the root of whatever issues you have because none of us are perfect. That means we all got issues. So that means we all need to be looking at what's going on internally, putting that mirror in front of our own faces. And instead of pointing that finger out, turn it around, point it at yourself and say, what is it that I need to be working on? What is it that needs to be healed or transformed inside of me? And interesting enough, we talked last night on my show, we were talking about trauma and we were talking about
And
how,
what show is that?
oh, SOS.
And what is SOS?
SOS is saving our sex lives one bedroom at a time.
Mm.
So you
If you
come
haven't tuned
see
into that, you
your girl.
want to tune in every Tuesday at 9 p.m.
Thank you, Hasani. So on the show, we were talking about trauma and the fact that there are times where trauma can occur within the marriage. But many times we bring past traumas into our marriage. And we oftentimes are not even aware that we're still carrying this. And so it's our responsibility to heal our trauma. So you definitely have to work on your individual self, work on getting the healing for yourself, and make sure that you are taking care of what you need to take care of so that you can be the best version of yourself that you can be.
It was Kwame Ture who said that the job of the conscious is to make the unconscious aware of their unconscious behaviors, thus making them conscious. So, what we're talking about is self awareness. And to your point, a lot of times we enter into relationships with trauma. Or trauma was created within the relationship, but we're not self aware because we don't take enough time to self reflect and to look at ourselves. We're busy looking outward at our partner and we can easily identify what's wrong with them. We have a PhD in everything that's wrong with our partner, but we have a GED in what's wrong with us. And so to your point, getting that therapeutic help and owning your own stuff and finding your own healing is critically important. And guess what? This also contributes to the next thing, because if I realize, okay, it's me, oh Lord, I need some things that I need to work out of me. My partner's doing the same. We're getting the help that we need, getting therapy, whatever case may be. We're becoming better. Now we're in a position where we can go to the next step, and that is fixing what has been broken. You don't necessarily have to wait till you get back into the relationship together to fix everything, but it would be good to begin engaging in dialogue and having interactions. We talk about the importance of, If you're in a controlled separation, you're going to have your work day and your play day. You're working on resolving issues. What has been broken that we can take a look at so that we can make some repairs, some corrections, some pivots, some course corrections, so we come back into a different environment. So maybe one of the issues that we struggled with was finances. Hey, how about we get help working through this so that when we come back in, we're in a like mind? Maybe we had an issue or we had a problem in the area of, domestic support and who takes responsibility for managing certain things in the house or whatever it is. I mean, the issues that you have. And so it builds up motivation and desire to say, hey, maybe this thing can work because you've come together to negotiate through resolutions to existing problems. And the more you can resolve and the more you can fix and repair, I'm telling you, you're creating an atmosphere for success in your relational future.
Absolutely. And I was thinking as you were talking before that sometimes people don't even realize that there is an issue or work that needs to be done internally until they get in a relationship. Because when you're single and you're by yourself, I mean, you don't have to please anybody. You don't have to satisfy anybody. You don't have to communicate with anybody but you. You don't have to consider anybody else. But when you get into a relationship, oftentimes that's when you discover that, oh my God, I am not all together. I got some
Yes.
issues that I need to deal with. So being open to that and accepting and owning what it is that you need to deal with, that's a critical step and so important to the success of a relationship. I think that one of the things too that is probably the most important in every single relationship, no matter what aspect we're talking about of the relationship, is communication.
Mm,
And I, you know, I keep telling people again, I keep telling the viewers, the watchers, right, for SOS, that communication, you're going to hear me talk about communication every single week, because we cannot have a successful relationship if we're not talking to each other. And more importantly, how are we talking to each other? How are we communicating? Oftentimes, even when we're calm, right, we're not coming in hot. We don't have that pop off spirit that's escalated, right? Even when we're cool, calm, and collected, sometimes it is the way that we're saying what we're saying that can set off our partner, that can trigger our partner, that literally can spark an argument because of how we've said what we've said. And so that communication piece is critically important. Taking the time to take the feelings out of it is one of the things that I think many of us struggle with, but this is probably more so with the ladies. We struggle a lot of times with separating our feelings from facts. And it's so important that when we are communicating, that we separate them into categories. Like literally, I want to share my feelings with you, and I'm clear that this is how I feel. So because this is how I feel, it may not be fact. It may just be my perspective. It may
yes.
just be my emotions that are making me see this or hear this the way that I'm receiving what it is that's being said. So, being clear that these are my feelings, these are the facts, these are the things that have taken place. And as a result of this is how I feel. So, we have to get so, I think, become experts in our way of communicating with everyone, but specifically with our spouses, so that we are able to have that clear, concise, direct communication. Those conversations need to be real, they need to be raw, but they should never, ever, ever be rude. And so, a good sign that you guys can reconcile, that you can come back together, is that you improve your level of communication. And that is a constant class that we are taking over and over and over again about improving our communication.
I totally agree. And, when it comes to communication, it's about really having non-violent communication, because you mentioned it's got to be real, it's got to be raw, but not rude. And I think, unfortunately, a lot of people have gotten comfortable in
Hmm.
being rude, comfortable in saying
Hmm.
whatever they want to say, regardless of how their spouse feels, regardless of the consequences. And I think a lot of the ways in which we communicate is deeply embedded in our our disposition towards our spouse. Like, for instance,
Yeah.
when you go to your job, there's a certain level of respect you give your supervisor, your boss, even your coworkers. So you're
Yeah.
not going to come in talking crazy, looking crazy, acting crazy, because not only do you want to be seen a certain type of way, you want to have a certain relationship with others, you want to have a good connection. So you're going to be mindful, very intentional. Whereas we take a very different approach with our spouse. We're very casual, very comfortable, and
Yeah.
we just don't care a lot of times. And
Mm-hmm.
we could be very violent, very destructive with our words. As they say, sticks and stones may break your bones, but words will never harm you, is a flipping lie. Sticks and stones can kill you.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, words can kill you
Mm-hmm.
if you have loose lips
Yeah.
and you don't have a caring, loving disposition with your spouse.
Well, also, Hasani, once you say certain things, you can never bring it back. And the
Mm,
damage is already done. Once those words go from your lips to that person's ears, they go directly internal, inside, and it impacts them in a way that you can never pluck that out. You can't pull it out. You can't reel it back in. You can't pull it back. So we just have to be very mindful. Like, the ability to speak is a gift, and the
absolutely.
ability to hear is a gift. And so it's power, and we have to use our power wisely. We definitely have to be, as you say, not loose with the lips. We have to make sure that we're being controlled and very focused and intentional with our words.
Yeah. Jay says, my spouse has gotten comfortable in our relationship after the affair. His behavior in the beginning of
Was
was
more
more
remorseful.
remorseful. Okay, yeah.
Mhm.
So yeah, unfortunately, I think a lot of couples get very comfortable, very casual, non-caring disposition, and it goes back to a conversation we were having a few days ago about you feeling disregarded in your relationship, in terms of how your spouse treats you and how they show up, and we really have to pivot on that and have a level of honor and respect that we give each other, so that it creates the safe environment to move forward in terms of reconciliation. But let's go in another area. I think this is important here, guys. If you're signing up for something new and different, then you have to choose to become new and different. I'm not interested in the same old patterns, the same old communication style, the same old idiosyncrasy. No, I want something different. Like, inspire me. And in fact, I want to know how you are different. So, one of the things that you need to begin to do with your partner is really become curious about what's going on with your partner. Now, if you've been separated for a couple months, some upwards of a year, some 5 years, you're probably dealing with somewhat a different person in some respects. And so there's got to be a level of intrigue that you have. Like, when you first started your relationship, all you were doing was asking each other questions, and you were getting lost in the details and tell me more. And wow, this is so fascinating. And so the focus is not on yourself. The focus is on exploring the depths of who your partner is. There's got to
Yeah.
be an area of intrigue. And so you want to ask questions about people's hopes, about your partner's dreams, about what they see for the future, what their vision is, what type of relationship they want in the future, how things are going to be different. Like, begin to inquire, be curious about them. Because when there's a curiosity and you begin to pursue the curiosity, you begin to realize, wow, I'm seeing a different side. I'm seeing something new and different that I didn't see before. And I think what happens is, when you've been together with a person for so long, you just assume that they're just the same person. But this is why I love the moon to earth syndrome. The moon to earth syndrome. Like, you look up at the moon, you see one moon, but you see different shapes and sizes of that moon throughout a 28-day period. And really, no matter what it looks like, whether half moon, crescent moon, full moon, you're still only looking at one side or one face of the moon. That in order to see the other side of the moon, you would have to travel into space and look at it from top down, and you would see what is called the dark side of the moon. Well, the reality is, we all have a dark side. And when I say dark, I don't mean bad, sinister, or evil. What I mean is that we all have an undiscovered side. There's a portion or part of your partner you have yet to discover, because you've done life with them the same way for the last 10, 15 years. Same patterns, same, you get caught up in this dance, and your partner in the depths of who they are, but maybe only a portion of who they are in depth. But there's other portions that have yet to be revealed. So your curiosity and your intrigue will pull out the things that you did not know, which thus creates something new and different and gives you hope as you begin to reconcile back into that home together.
Well, that curiosity can also spark desire. And we want that, don't we?
Oh,
We
without a
need
doubt.
desire. We need desire if we're coming back together. So, you allowing your spouse to see and experience you being curious about what's going on with them definitely can send a message to them that you desire them as a whole in general, and that's extremely important for the success of your relationship. So, I want to add in something else that I think I'm like, all of this is important, right? All of it's good, but like this one right up there with communication for me is talking about needs.
Mm,
And I think we enter into marriage many times without having a conversation about our expectations. And that's when, to me, things can go awry because they're just they're undisclosed expectations. And so when our partners don't meet those expectations, we're disappointed. And then our mind starts to spiral if we don't get support, if we don't communicate and we don't talk about it. Our mind can create these false beliefs. Well, they don't love me, they don't care, they don't want me to be happy, or whatever. We start telling ourselves these false truths about how our partner feels or whatever. So it's extremely important and coming back together and reconciling that you guys have conversations about what your individual needs are, so that we have expectations already set, and they need to be realistic expectations. If you are struggling financially, you cannot be saying to your spouse, well, I want to take a trip every month out of the country. Like, that's not a realistic expectation. But can we come together every month and discuss the plans that we have for a trip, maybe every 6 months to go out of the country? And every month we come together and we put our steps together and plans together. Yes, that's a realistic expectation. But if traveling is a need for you, then that's something that you need to discuss, and let's come up with action steps, and let's come up with a plan to make that happen. But if we don't talk about our needs, we cannot hold our spouses accountable for things that they never knew were expectations. So, really important along the lines of communication, we have to be communicating what our needs are so that everybody's on the same page and we understand exactly what's expected of us.
absolutely. I want you to respond to this. This is probably going to be the only question that we can address today, and we're going to pick up and do a part two tomorrow. But Kenny says, how do you get past growing apart and not having to be accountable to anyone, i.e., leave and come as you wish, purchase what you want when you want, etc.? I don't know if he's speaking in the context of a separation or within the home, but how do you address that, Lakeesha?
Yeah, I mean, it sounds like a separation. And so, Kenny, I say to you, it is an adjustment. Once you do go your separate ways and you don't have to answer to someone, it is an adjustment. But the reality is this: if you are saying that you want to be back together, then that is a sacrifice that you must be willing to make. It is a compromise that you must be willing to make. It is a conversation with your spouse to let them know, listen, I've gotten comfortable not having to answer to you. So I need you to give me some grace because it's gonna take me a minute to get back in the routine and the practice of considering you and having a conversation with you. It's gonna take me a little minute because it's been a while since I've done that. But I think you want to start off with prioritizing where you need to go first, right? Because a lot of times it literally is those top things: finances, parenting, in-laws, all those things that maybe you guys have been at each other about. You want to start there with those top things most important that you want to start working on first, to make sure that, again, you are considering your spouse so you don't end up separated again.
Hope that was a comprehensive answer to your question. Sounded like it was. Listen, guys, I hope you're enjoying this conversation. We're going to continue tomorrow, part 2, on how to reconcile during separation. It's important that you hear these steps and you begin to implement what we're talking about so that it can bring about change and transformation in your relationship. Love you guys. See you in the morning. Take care.